Welcome back to Hardball. Following a series of bombshell developments in the special counsel's probe, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein is now bracing for the worst, apparently. Rosenstein, who oversees the investigation of the president, is under fire by the president this week for personally approving the FBI's raid on Michael Cohen's office up in New York. That raid reportedly sent Trump into a meltdown, according to the New York Times. However, despite mounting indications that the president may soon fire him, NBC News is reporting that Rosenstein has struck a stoic and righteous tone in private conversations he has had this week about the fate of his job. In those conversations, he has repeated the phrase, "Here I stand," a reference to Martin Luther's famous quote, "Here I stand, I can do no other." Well, one source who spoke to Rosenstein said he seemed fully aware he may soon lose his job and was at peace with the possibility, confident he'd done his job with integrity. With the special counsel now expected to issue a portion of his findings on an accelerated timetable, the firing of Rosenstein could bolster an obstruction case against the president. However, such a move could also stop the probe in its tracks. Joining me right now is Katie Phang, MSNBC legal analyst, Nick Confessore, political reporter of the New York Times, and an MSNBC political contributor, and Jason Johnson, politics editor for The Root. He's also an MSNBC political analyst. So all three of you, I've been using the metaphor of the Titanic. That would be the Trump administration, and Trump personally. This very pretty ship with one smokestack that wasn't real, by the way, and not even God itself can sink this ship, heading off into the North Atlantic, and then there's this iceberg waiting for it. Only a little bit of it showing above the surface of the water. Huge iceberg. And what proves that metaphor is that every once in a while we hear 13 Russians indicted. And then this thing now, they know something about the Prague meeting. There seems to be so much power beneath the surface of this iceberg that it just keeps growing. The New York action this week, none of us thought about that last week. We didn't know about everything keeps emerging. What do you know, Katie Phang? You're the lawyer, and you've been this seems to be huge, and now they've got the Prague thing that totally disabuses of the idea that somehow this dossier isn't for real.
So the iceberg has the marquee name of Bob Mueller on it, right? Robert Mueller.
Right.
What's happening here is obstruction of justice requires corrupt intent. It's not just I did what I could do if I was the president of the United States. It's did I do it with the intent to make sure that I wasn't exposed? And when you see something like Trump getting triggered the way that he did after that raid on Monday with Michael Cohen, you have to ask yourself, what is so essential about Michael Cohen? And now we hear that Cohen lied about being in Prague. So Cohen is now a known, proven liar. And now we know evidence has been seized from Cohen's office that could implicate the president. So now we hear that maybe Rod Rosenstein, here I stand. It's like the guy's willing to take a bullet, just like Michael Cohen said he would. And so if Rod Rosenstein is gone, how much more proof do you need that the president of the United States is attempting to obstruct Mueller's investigation? And I think that you have a huge building up case, and it's not going to be up for debate. It's going to be uncontroverted evidence that President Trump had something going on with the Russians.
To the non-lawyers, we see this very simply. We see a bunch of people that can be flipped by Mueller. People that Trump does business with, seedy characters, a lot of people with criminal possibilities, vulnerabilities, exposures, as they say in the legal world. And all you have to do if you're Mueller is go mining these guys, looking for what they did wrong that you can use against them to get them to flip and turn evidence against Trump. And now we have the possibility that he was dealing with the Russians over in Prague. If that happened, talk about bringing the whole collusion case back to the surface.
Okay, look, the good ship Trump was never meant to go up against a criminal investigation. It was meant to sail up and down the Hudson River and anchor itself off Palm Beach. This is a real estate developer who has worked in a somewhat shadowy business, and he kept, Cohen around to kind of push people on contracts and figure out problems and be a fixer. It was never meant to be exposed to a criminal investigation and hardened federal prosecutors and investigators. And above all, it was never supposed to be the fact that somebody would come in and take all of Cohen's his diaries, his passports, his documents,
his tablet, his safe.
It's just a really big deal to have all that exposed because it was never meant to go to this point.
Jason, he kept this guy in New York. He never brought him down to Washington and tried to get him through a Senate confirmation hearing. He wasn't for that. Somebody tells, one of my favorite phone callers calls me up and tells me he was a guy who wasn't there for any other reason except to deal with the problematic stuff that Trump had to deal with. It could be women, whatever. And he wasn't supposed to get any publicity. He didn't want to go to a big white shoe law firm and get publicity for who he was going to help for. This was the guy to keep the secrets. Now all the secrets are now in the bin of the special prosecutor, or rather the New York prosecutors.
Right, and here's what makes it even more dangerous, Chris. Now, if it's confirmed that he was actually doing dealings with Russia in Prague, that connects possible criminal behavior on the part of Donald Trump, the business person, with possible collusion behavior on the part of Donald Trump, the president of the United States. That is a nexus that he never wanted to bring together. You know, Cohen is basically his Doug Stamper from House of Cards, right? He did all the dirty stuff. You know, he
Michael
kept everything
Kelly's character. Yeah, go ahead.
And so, you know, now that this guy is exposed, yes, will Cohen be loyal? Probably to a certain point. But when you do this kind of work, you do keep tapes of everything because you know at some point it may just come down to you. So Trump is in a very precarious position, both in his past life, his current life as a public official. And the real question is going to be, which it's always come down to, Chris, when is Congress going to act to protect the agents who are engaging in this investigation? Because the president's going to try and shut this down very quickly.
We'll see. The weekend's on us. Jason Johnson, Nick Confessore, and Katie Phang. Up next, the Hardball Roundtable's coming.